of retaliatory tariffs. President Trump says he's thrilled with what he calls an amazing growth rate. On Wall Street, the Dow down 75. I'm Mike Moss.
I'm Jay Farner, CEO of Quicken Loans, America's premier home purchase lender. We've created a new way to protect you from unpredictable interest rates. Our exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, we lock your interest rate for up to 90 days. Then, if rates go up, your rate stays locked. But if rates go down, your rate drops. Either way, you win. Call us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com.
Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year fixed-rate loans. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLS number 3030. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply.
At CarMax, when we say we buy all the cars, we mean it. Over the last 20 years, we've purchased millions of cars from coast to coast. In the last year alone, we've bought a mountain of Mercurys, an armada of Nissans, a ton of Titans, an ocean of Pacificas, and a sea of Siennas. Not to mention a few Hellcats and a couple of Tornadoes. So no matter what you're selling, CarMax is buying. And we'll buy your car even if you don't buy ours. CarMax. We buy all the cars.
The 911 call of Demi Lovato's apparent drug overdose has been released, and correspondent Jim Roop reports the audio includes what some categorize as an odd request.
Paramedic operator 65, what's the address of the emergency?
It was 11:22 a.m. Tuesday. The caller, who we're told is an assistant, not giving much information from the portions of the call we received, even apparently requesting the whole thing be done quietly.
You should be hearing the sirens real soon.
No sirens, please, right?
No. This is a medical emergency. I don't have control over that.
We're told drug paraphernalia was found, and Lovato was allegedly given Narcan, the drug used to reverse the effects of heroin. Meanwhile, Lovato is recovering at an L.A. area hospital. Jim Roop, Los Angeles.
The Department of Agriculture's Food Safety and Inspection Service issued a public health alert today for foods containing whey powder. It's used and regulated by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration to modify texture and thicken foods. I'm Mike Moss.
These days, there's enough to stress about. Do I eat enough kale? Do I eat too much kale? What's the best way to sell my car?
What would you do with extra money every month? Pay off your debt, save for retirement, travel, or upgrade your lifestyle? If you're ready to see your paychecks do more for you, start budgeting with Every Dollar. Every Dollar is a free budget app that is helping people find money they didn't know they had. People are saving thousands. If piles of paper and complicated spreadsheets come to mind when you think about budgeting, you're not alone. Thankfully, Every Dollar has taken the headache out of budgeting and made it something people actually enjoy. In less than 10 minutes, you can create your first budget. No calculator or spreadsheet needed. Even better, with the Every Dollar mobile app, your budget is always with you, making it easy to update your budget and track your spending while on the go. It's your money and your life. Get more out of both with an Every Dollar budget. Create your free budget today at everydollar.com. That's everydollar.com.
Hey Dave, let's tune into the Simply Senior radio show on K-Talk this Saturday. It's at 2 p.m. and it actually sounds really interesting, and maybe we can learn something.
I love you, Barb, but I think I'll pass. Besides, it sounds more like geezer radio. I bet it's all about soft foods and spray-on hair. How old do you think I am?
Okay, Dave, let me ask you in a different way. Do you want to listen to a radio show for people who are smarter, wiser, and have more life experiences than everyone else? Yes or no?
On second thought, I'm in.
If you want to join us for the Simply Senior radio show, tune into K-Talk at 1640 a.m. every Saturday from 2 to 3 p.m. See you there, slugger.
The Simply Senior radio show is a radio program for those people who are a little bit smarter, a little bit wiser, and have a ton more experience than anyone else.
Good afternoon, Salt Lake City and the entire world. You're listening to Shane and Scott here on Prepper Talk Radio on this Apocalypse Friday. Let's call it Apocalypse
Friday?
Lunar Eclipse Friday, right?
Apocalypse.
Alpacalypse? I like that better. I like alpacalypse. I know how you want to have an alpaca farm, alpaca ranch. Eventually. Want to drop me just a little bit? There you go. And and I've been thinking about that as well, especially after today's topic and doing a little more research. It makes me want to have alpacas even a little bit more, and we'll get into that. But I wanted to mention the Apocalypse Friday. It is the lunar eclipse blood moon. Oh, that's Friday. Right. That's why I'm kind of getting into that, right? And so it is not a lunar eclipse that we will see here in North America, but it is still happening regardless. It's just happening during the day here, so we can't see it. And my thoughts, and I want to hear your thoughts, so feel free to give us a call on what these blood moons mean, because we're having them more regularly than usual. And this is the longest blood moon lunar eclipse in this century.
Yep. So if you want to call in, 801-254-1640, just like our numbers.
And, Scott and I, we're religious. We believe that signs in the heavens or events in the heavens are signs.
Mm-hmm.
And we firmly believe we're in the last days. And that's one of the reasons why we're prepping, right? This is why we're doing this show.
Prepping's so cool, right? That's why all of us prep. We see societies falling apart. Yes. We see things changing in the heavens as well as on earth.
You and I see it.
Right?
And others who are listening
our listeners see it.
Yeah.
But not all of your friends are paying attention to that. Right? And that's why they need to be paying attention to our show, because even though we don't go into the politics, we go into the skills, the mindset, the how-tos, because our mission is to help alleviate fear. Because when you are prepared, ye shall not fear. Today's a fun show. I'm excited about this one because, it goes back to, we look back to the past to prepare for the future.
Yeah, and I've kind of felt in the past few weeks, past few months, and looking forward, that we need to address this a little bit more heavily, a little bit stronger, pay a little more attention to it, to looking to the past, to preparing for the future. And why do we say that? Is the future obviously continues to change.
Right.
Technology continues to advance. Things are not the same as they used to be, and are getting more and more different,
and
leaving me behind, and leaving my parents behind even more so. Right.
Well, depends on how you want to define that. I think that it leaves us behind in some ways, but it's also drowning out our ability to take care of ourselves if we get reliant on that. We actually have a caller.
Yeah, let's go and take
that caller.
Hello, you're live here on Prepper Talk Radio. Did you have a comment or a question for us?
I had a comment about the blood moon.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Last year, on the about a month after the eclipse, there was a sign in the heavens of the constellation Leo and Virgo.
Yes.
As the birth of the man-child. Well, anyway, this year, these three blood moons, one that we already had in January, and then this one, and then next year on the 21st of January, make up, like you say, it's the red moon, or the red dragon of the apocalypse. So it's the Revelation John chapter 12. Chapter.
I think it is 12, isn't it? Revelation 12, yeah.
It follows.
You just got me because I don't remember.
The events will happen after. After the signs are shown. Like the eclipse is really death and destruction for the United States, basically.
Well, and that's kind of what was thought with the last solar eclipse, right? Because it came right across, straight across the United States, right through the heart of the country, and it was kind of a sign saying, you know what, shape up or you're going to be destroyed, right?
Well, the next one like that's going to crisscross the opposite direction.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, and it's 7 years later.
7 years.
Interesting.
Magical number 7.
And the eclipse width of the eclipse is 70 miles.
And
they pass. Both of them pass over Adirondack and Far West.
Yep.
What a coincidence. Who are 70 miles apart. So.
Or very nearby. Yeah, absolutely. Right through the heart of the country there. Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, thanks for the call.
That's a great call, actually.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we try not to get too heavily into this, but I wanted to make sure that everyone is at least aware of what's happening out there, because you must be aware to be prepared, right? You must look. You must be, what's the right word I'm looking for?
Observant.
You have to be observant, yeah.
Awake.
And you can't have your head in the sand thinking all is well, which, I mean, right now, if you're not out there looking, you would think, man, everything is good. The economy's good. Life is good. And, and that's my attitude as well. And I'm taking advantage of it every single day.
But also if you're looking at it from a microcosm it's a lot easier to see the good than it is the bad. If you look at it from the macrocosm, on the bigger level, see what's really going on from state to state, see what's really going on from country to country, it changes your perspective on what's going on in the world. Now, it doesn't mean you should be all doom and gloom. It just makes you more aware.
That's hard, though.
Which also makes you more appreciative, at least for me, it makes me more appreciative how good I have it right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people shy away from that because they think, I don't want to be negative. I don't want to be doom and gloom. I don't want to have that negative influence in my life. And I get that, absolutely, but I think it can be approached both ways. You can see it. You don't have to be completely immersed in some of these topics, like what does this blood moon mean? Okay, does it really matter what it means? Or that you're aware that it's happening and that it is a sign of things to come,
right?
Which should just be a reminder, okay, don't stop prepping, step up your prepping. And I know that we've talked about this a little bit on the show, with our current president and the attitude that prepping has turned downhill big time. Prepping as in the retail side, right? People not going out and buying their food storage and
even just the trainings, right? The people that I talk to that do wilderness training, that's dropped off a little bit. People that do preparedness trainings, Emergency Essentials, a good friend of ours,
Yep.
We shop there quite a bit, but their weekly classes are less and less attended, and those are primarily skill set classes.
And a lot of these, we'll call them retailers, they're definitely struggling. Those who focus on this aspect of the market. I mean, it obviously has broader applications, but when you focus on food storage in particular, you can have your ups and downs. When something happens, business is good. When nothing's happening,
business is bad.
Business is, really bad.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I used to have a small food storage company, and our packer, they went out of business, and that forced us out of business.
Gone.
And that wasn't devastating because we just did it on the side, and it was fun. And I was able to get all my food storage deeply discounted because I was buying it wholesale. But the reality of our situation is each of us is responsible for ourselves, and I think self-reliance is not leaned on quite near enough in our current society because we have so many technological advances. We have so many benefits of life that I think we need to take a stop, take a pause, look back, and really find out what our ancestors did. Pay attention to that. I mean, part of today's topic I got so excited about because a few weeks ago I was in Idaho and I spent some time with my grandfather. And in his wood shop in the backyard, he makes these little toy trucks and toy trains and toy cars as a humanitarian aid project. They're toy kits. They get shipped all over the world to kids that don't have toys, and the kids get to paint them. It comes with a paint set, and they get to put them together, and then they've got a little car or truck or train. And in his tools back there, he has some of his grandfather's tools. He's got an 8-foot buck saw. And
big old crosscut saw.
Yeah, we talked about that thing for a good 45 minutes, just that tool alone.
Yeah.
And it was amazing because we talked about how the invention of the chainsaw was such a game changer for his family because he remembers going up and when he was a little kid, they would take that buck saw, 4 men and a couple kids would go with him because it's, let mom have a break, I guess. But he'd go up and it would take them all day to bring down one tree and process it with the giant buck saw and the small the camp axes and the other axes.
You shared that video on our Facebook page of logging in the 40s, 50s.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that before, and that's just, you can just really appreciate how much work that is. And that was cutting down redwoods. These
those were huge trees. Now think of pines, right? Think of these big pines in the northern Rockies. Now, it would take them a day to bring it down and process it with that big buck saw and their axes. Well, then it would take 3 wagon loads
to do a cord of wood,
and that would provide a cord of wood, and they needed 20 cords
to get through winter.
the winter,
yeah,
and to keep their homes warm. And now you can do that same tree in an hour. You can have it, and this is bucked into rounds, right?
Not
in an hour, you can have it into rounds and cleared off, and then you can load it. Whereas it used to take them a whole day before they could start bringing it down the mountain. So it's really amazing how far we've come, but how many of us could actually do a whole day's work for that little of warmth?
Yeah, and you need to realize that you can go and get yourself a fire cutting permit from the Forest Service for particular areas, and I think it is for a cord or a cord and a half or something like that per permit, and go get this yourself so you don't have to pay for it.
Now, I thought it was illegal for the government to require us to get a permit to take down trees in our own lands.
It is. But I don't want to get into that discussion here. But you're absolutely right.
Do what you feel right doing.
Exactly.
But yeah, you can go get it. And like my brother, he's a tree feller.
$15
like,
or something.
He,
There you go.
takes down trees all the time for clients, and he's always selling the wood for dirt cheap. Just hop on Facebook, you'll find it. But it's amazing because he'll bring down giant trees, like 3 or 4 in a day, and they're just huge. Like the worst ones are the cottonwoods.
Oh yeah.
They're just, and you don't want to burn those. It's just junk wood. Like I hate cottonwoods because they break, so they're brittle, they're garbage.
They rot on the inside.
They rot on the inside, and the smoke is horrible. So, today it's kind of, let's look back and see what our ancestors did, and also kind of pay homage to the pioneers, because in Utah we had Pioneer Day this week. The days of 47 rodeos going on. There's a lot of neat things going on to kind of try to help us remember, but I think more people are focused on the corn dogs and the cotton candy than on the
fireworks.
history. And the fireworks, right. The history is the part that we can learn something
I really have a hard time sending my hard-earned money up into smokes. You know what I mean? So, but I appreciate the celebration and such. But I think the celebration should be more of a different kind of tradition. These foolish traditions. You ask me, fireworks are a foolish tradition. And so let's make a different tradition where we truly learn about our pioneer heritage, and in looking to the past, we are preparing for the future. Just by educating ourselves makes a big difference. And I think one thing we'll get to probably after this next break is that one of the key, in looking at all these different pioneer stories, and how they lived, and how they set up their homestead and such, the biggest factor, in my opinion, was their knowledge and their decision making ability. Through experience, through wisdom, and through their I guess their more experienced elders in their communities.
Well, they paid attention to the elders, right? They paid attention to the people that had gone before them because they'd already been through it. Now we kind of put our elders to the side because they're like, oh, well, you can't figure out what we can figure out with technology, right?
Yeah, especially when it comes to technology. Exactly. I was over helping my dad do something on the computer the other day, and I guess it was early '90s. I got my dad his first computer. And I taught him how to use it, and I still
son.
And I still continue to teach him how to. It's been that long, and he still just needs help with that, and I look back at myself. Okay, am I getting to that place as well, where my kids are so much more advanced on their electronics than I am, and I really have no desire to get more advanced on these electronics. I appreciate technology. I'm using it. I'm going to use it, but it comes to a point where, like my dad, and probably like his dad as well, you get to a point where, like, okay, I'm done. I don't need to know anymore. I'm happy where I'm at. I don't, want to go past a certain point in technology as relates to, I guess,
you don't want to get to a point where you're relying on it, right?
Yeah, I think that's a big part about it. You can handicap yourself by relying on technology.
Well, what's funny
certain kinds of technology too much.
Is I've talked to a lot of chiropractors, and one of the things that they're finding is kids are coming in more and more with spinal alignment issues because they're leaning down over their phones and tablets. Kids, teenagers,
because they're hunched over, bent over,
and they're not getting any exercise, and so they're not fixing the problems that they're going to create for their bodies by using this technology.
Yeah, and I think that has a great tie into our subject as well today of how hard these pioneers worked and how hard life was. So thanks for listening to Scott and Shane here on Prepper Talk Radio on K-Talk AM 1640 here in Salt Lake City. Please take a listen to our sponsors, and we'll get back to you right after the break.
The sun's finally out, so get out there and enjoy. And don't forget to bring along the refreshing sound of K-Talk Media, 1640 AM.
Defending Utah Radio is the show exposing Utah's tyrants, investigative journalism, and constitutional principles. We have the inside scoop you won't find anywhere else. Defending Utah every Saturday at 1. To learn more or become a member of Defending Utah, visit defendingutah.org.
What could be more American than fireworks, barbecue, and ammo?
I'm picking up what you're throwing down, yeah.
How about a giveaway that combines them all?
Well, if that don't put pepper in the gumbo, I don't know what to say.
K-Talk AM 1640 has teamed up with Matt's Fireworks, the Armory, Firearms and Shooting Range, Anvil Appliances, and Spring Hill Suites for an all-American giveaway that would have George Washington nodding in approval. Enter to win at ktalkmedia.com, on Facebook at KTalk Utah, or on Twitter at KTKK. A giveaway with barbecue, fireworks, and ammo.
As a small business owner, you make every dollar count. So what could you do with $10? Go to Vistaprint.com today and you'll get 500 high-quality custom business cards for only $9.99. That's less than 2 cents per card. And at Vistaprint, your satisfaction is absolutely guaranteed. So it's never been easier to turn 500 strangers into connections. Just visit Vistaprint.com and use promo code 4000 at checkout. That's Vistaprint.com, promo code 4000.
My name is Dr. Jonathan Greenberg. Stop what you are doing because what I'm about to say will improve the quality of your life. ZYPPAH.com. That's Zipa. It's Happy Z spelled backwards. Zipa is designed to be comfortable, affordable, and effective at eliminating snoring. I want to help you stop snoring. Go to Zipa.com and order now. ZYPPAH.com. Snoring is a serious matter. Zipa will conquer your snoring problems. Go to Zipa.com and order now.
Welcome back to the program. You're listening to Scott Shane here on Prepper Talk Radio here at K-Talk AM 1640 in Salt Lake City. We want to encourage you to go check out our Facebook page. I think we're also on Twitter and Instagram as well. Though we
really just focus on Facebook right now.
And of course, you got Prepared Guy on Facebook as well as Instagram. I like Instagram. I do. It's quick. It's easy. Post pictures there. Tell a little short story about the picture. Anyway, so we'd love to interact with you guys there on Facebook in particular. Send us a message, chat with us. We really enjoy that, especially when you ask us specific questions, because that's when I really love to get into the nitty-gritty.
Yep.
And give you my opinion, my knowledge on what I've learned. Because otherwise, I spend all this time learning and learning. And am I just wasting my time and I can't share it with anybody?
Well, I think the other thing is it also gets us to think about things in a different way and go research. But I think the nice thing is then we can also use that as content for future shows. So if you have questions you want us to cover on a show, man, just hit up our Facebook page. Let us know. We'll get it in. We'll get it in the lineup.
Yeah.
Next week we're going to be talking. We're going to have a fun conversation on trapping from a gentleman who does actual trapping, and he's been doing it for almost 20, 30 years. So we're going to have some fun conversations on that and understanding snare lines and trap lines and.
We're trying to kind of focus on old world skills here.
Yeah.
Staying back in the past, looking to the past to prepare for the future. Because and I wanted to get around to this in the last segment is the reason we do that is because we know things are going to change.
Yep.
And things will continue to change, becoming more technologically advanced and making life easier and simpler. And again, kind of handicapping us to when things do change dramatically for the worse. That we won't, if you're not learning these skills, you won't be prepared for what comes next. And Scott and I were talking during the break about when is this going to happen. The experts in the financial industries all over the world have thought, man, this financial collapse is going to happen by now. It should have happened a long time ago, but it still keeps going on. It keeps going, and we know through the scriptures that it'll come like a thief in the night, right? It'll keep getting better and better, and people will be happy and positive, and then it will come, and no one will be, or very few people will be prepared. So, thus, we are looking to the past to prepare for the future, change your lifestyle now, become more self-reliant.
Yep. Learn skills, learn trades, learn how to take care of yourself. This is, I wanted to share kind of a story, a couple different stories, but this one is my great-great-great-grandmother, Polly Meekum. This is from her sister. She wrote in her diary, and this is kind of a short sketch out of it. But when they were little kids, they moved from Canesville, which is now Council Bluffs, Iowa, where her father took up some land and 1.5 miles from Canesville, and they just got settled when a flood came and took out everything they had. That's a disaster. Those are the things we type of prepare for.
And especially back then when you don't have that much or resources or so much less than they are now.
Well, and you're responsible for everything. I mean, so they had a flood, and that took out everything they had. So then they built a house on a hill where they had to carry water 3/4 of a mile just to get water into the house. She remembers well how frightened they were going through the woods as some of the men had killed a wild cat, right? Like a cougar, bobcat, something. They picked wild grapes, strawberries, raspberries, gooseberries, blackberries, elderberries, walnuts, hazelnuts, hickory nuts, and butternuts. And by picking those, they earned up enough money to finally buy their first pair of shoes. They'd been barefoot or wearing moccasins made by their mom until that point.
Yeah, that's something we really don't appreciate, is how easy and how inexpensive shoes are, and yet they are junk compared to the quality of working for an entire month to earn your own shoes that would last you for years.
So this is way back in 1847.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, we don't make things as good as we used to, right?
Especially shoes.
Manufacturers make things with the intent to make you come buy another one because you enjoyed it, but it wore out, right? But so then in the spring of 1853, so just 5 years later, they started for Utah. They went a long way by raft, and she and her sisters were afraid of the water. They ended up crossing the Missouri River on a ferry boat, which also frightened them very much. Then on July 18th, their father started with 2 wagons, 1 yoke of oxen, 2 yoke of unbroken steers, and 4 cows. The man that sold those to the father had stolen them, and then the man who had them stolen from him came and took them back. So they'd lost their money, and they at this point only had 1 wagon and the cows. Unbroken cows pulling a wagon, good luck with that. The daughters walked all the way across the plains from Council Bluffs to Salt Lake City. So that's a long, long ways. And they spent their time foraging along the way. They'd only had they hadn't had wheat for 3 months prior to this, and their dad bought a bag of wheat, which they were able to enjoy. They made bread cakes, and they were able to enjoy it for the first week and a half, and then it was gone. This is because, they were pretty much driven out of their homes, right? The Mormons were evicted pretty much up and down Iowa, Missouri. Like, they were it's like everybody wanted to get rid of them because Mormons are weird, right? Oh, we're making a better economy in Nauvoo. Get rid of them because they're taking over. Well, whatever your opinion of them, great. That's fine and dandy, but they were evicted, basically. So they could take whatever they could take and fit in these wagons or in these hand carts and go. And these guys, I mean, they made the trip over the summer into the late fall, but every night they would circle the wagons for their protection, and then they would set up a campfire in the middle and do their cooking. They had one guy that had a fiddle, and he'd play the fiddle, and if anyone was in the mood to dance, they'd dance, and they'd go to bed and they'd start the long day the next day. One day the kids were so tired they stopped to rest one day, and the wagons passed us up. Sarah, her sister, said she was not going any farther. She begged her to come with me, but she said that she would not. Rather, she wanted to be eaten by the wolves. Like, that's how bad it got.
Oh, yeah, I see that.
So, as we look to the past to kind of prepare for the future, I wanted to bring up that story because eventually they all made it to Utah. And my great-great-grandma, Polly Meekum, ended up marrying my great-great-great-grandpa, Moses Packer. Big, tough name. And I've got some stories from him as well, but, I mean, Joseph Packer, his father was Moses. But interesting stories of survival. I mean, they had to forage. They ended up, these guys ended up in kind of the Logan area at one point. Logan is northern Utah, up high altitude, very cold. But they'd had to carry water back to their place. They had to end up diverting water and streams to get to what they needed. But that was life for pioneers. Whether they were a Mormon pioneer or not, life was harsh. Life was tough. You had the men in the handcart companies could bring a saw, a hammer, and an axe. And then they could bring a cooking utensil, pot, a stand for the pot to hang it over the fire, and then needles and threads and some other little things that could change your clothes and maybe another pair of shoes. But people were limited to like 15 pounds, 20 pounds per person, per household, that ended up on these carts, and then they'd haul them out. So now we think of, in our day, how does that apply to if there's a major evacuation, right?
Exactly. The entire story you mentioned there is all about lessons. What can you learn through that entire short, simple story?
Right. There's
still a lot of lessons in there, from footwear to water to food to foraging
to security, safety. Right.
Exactly.
You know, they did hunting as well. They didn't have any. They couldn't do trap lines because they had to move on.
Yeah, you don't have time.
They didn't have time to wait and sit for those. Other cool stories is like, kind of Mormon folklore Porter Rockwell.
Mm-hmm. Order
and Porter Rockwell. That guy has probably more amazing stories than any other Mormon pioneer ever.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Extreme stories, and that's
extreme.
I guess where they come from, because they're stories of survival and more extreme stories instead of just working on the farm every day, right? And
yeah, I mean he was a lawman, and he was involved in a lot of duels, and he won all of them. He was put in jail a number of times. He ended up in the woods for 2 years one time, and he lived in a cave because he cut off all his hair to make a wig for the prophet's sister-in-law, who was, I think she had some kind of cancer. I can't remember what it was, but she was losing her hair, so he cut off all his hair, and he was promised that if he never cut off his hair, he could never be hurt by another man. So then he hid until his hair grew back out. Well, he used the Dakota fire pit, and he'd cook a mile away from his camp, and he'd always change his cooking location so that you could never find him. And he'd only cook at night. He'd only come out at night. He'd hide during the day. He used fish lines. He'd set up fish lines and then go check them every night. And he had cages and traps for that. But he had snare lines and other types of things. But he didn't use his gun while he was out there because people were actually hoping to kill him. While he may have been an awesome guy in history, he was a very much wanted guy in his lifetime. And so those skills, understanding how to do smokeless cooking, understanding how to do things to evade all the time. Those are skills, and those are things that I dare say most of us have no idea how to live that way. And he thrived for 2 years, then came wandering back into town, pistols on his hip, ready to go, long beard and long hair, ready to rock it, you know. And I could not even imagine living that way.
Yeah, especially with a family. I mean, by yourself, that's one thing, right? But to try and do that with a family. And, there's obviously lots of stories of the pioneers coming across the plains and their hardships and such. And most of them involve winter and running out of provisions, right? That's where they really got into trouble and things got difficult and hard. I mean, obviously, it's still hard, especially compared to our lives nowadays. But when you add in, okay, we don't have any food and it's cold outside, that's when the true survival really came in for these pioneers. So what kind of lessons can we learn from these ancestors of ours? You talked a little bit about the tools that they had to have. Okay, what kind of tools should we have at a minimum in order to survive? And I think I would probably say beg to differ or say that now we probably need to have more than what they got along with.
Well, I think we
need to have more.
I think it's that we think we need more, when in reality we don't need as much as we think we need. The bigger problem is okay, if there is an evacuation event, where are we going?
And how are we getting there?
And how are we getting there? And what tools do we have along the way to get there? Right? The nice thing now is there's so many homes and buildings, right? Well, what if those are gone? What if there's a major forest fire between here and wherever we're supposed to go, and we've got to get through that, right? What if earthquakes, tornadoes, hurricanes?
I think we see a common thread in all these stories, and I'm sure all of you listening out there know a lot of these stories, so we're not going to get into many of these stories, but it was always the first settlers who got there who had the most difficult time setting up the homestead, breaking the ground, getting plants in the ground, and getting things going. That was always the most difficult. So if we relate that to the bug-out scenario, right? If we're bugging out to somewhere we don't know where we're going and we're not prepared to go, we can look back to these stories of our pioneer ancestors to see how tough it was for them. And they were much more I wouldn't say hard people. They were much more used to hard work or hard life, because that was normal for them. For us, hard work is getting up, early Saturday morning mowing the lawn, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, it's
rather than walking 10 miles to go
10 to 15 miles a day, or sometimes even one. Sometimes they only moved 1 mile, but and there's more than just the Mormon pioneers. Like, you can look at anybody whose family's lived in a certain area for a long time, like our buddy John, who's been on the show a lot of times. His family's from southern Florida, swamplands and backwoods, and also the next generation ended up in Missouri for a long time and living off the land for years, generations. And he's got a skill set that neither of us have. Like, he can divine water where stuff is. He does all these weird trapping things, and he's got skill sets neither of us have. Now, there's many of you guys listening in right now that have ancestors that are that way, or maybe you're that way. what are you doing to share that information with that next generation? Yeah, I just got off a call a couple days ago with Bear Wild, who's got the survival school up in Montana. And he doesn't like calling it wilderness survival. He likes calling it wilderness living because survival makes him think of like the Holocaust, concentration camps and just getting through it. Whereas wilderness living is harmony with nature, right? Trying to be in harmony. If we're in harmony with nature, we have a better chance of a higher quality of life when we're opposing harmony.
And what I think that also means to me is that, like you say, survival is something that none of us want to experience.
Right.
But living is something I think every one of us should and wants to experience. So if we have that mindset of, we're just trying to get by, we're just trying to survive, that's not a good place to be in.
Yeah.
That's the defensive, right? You want to be on the offensive.
Yep.
So if you're living and you're really truly enjoying life that way and enjoying that lifestyle, and that's, I think that's, I really like. I like Bear. We're going to have him on the
We're going to have
show
him on
in the future.
I don't know if it's going to be 2 or 3 weeks, 4 weeks from now, but we're scheduling him to come on. What we're going to do, this is going to be cool. We're going to he's going to come down a couple days early. We're going to go on a wilderness living adventure with him for a couple of days and then use that as talking points for our show. His biggest thing is that people need to understand the value of fire. Fire is more than just a shelter and more than just a psychology issue. It is protection. There's so many facets of fire that we're going to really get into when he's here, but we're going to be doing only primitive skills stuff. We're not going to be allowed to take what we normally would take.
Okay, cool.
He's going to be like, okay, you can have a bedroll and a pocket knife or a fixed blade knife, and good luck with that.
Yeah.
He's going to limit it so that we really understand what we can do without all those things. And so hopefully we can pull enough out of that we can then pass on to you, the listener, what you can do, and you can take some confidence in what you don't have.
Yeah. Now, admittedly, I'm not much of I guess you'd call it a bushcrafter or survivalist per se, as in let's go into the woods and try and live off the land, right? Because, we've talked about this a million times. It's not really possible. And that's where I think a lot of these stories with the pioneers and community and working together with others and not the lone wolf, because the lone wolf rarely makes it.
Well, the lone wolf is good for a short time.
Right, yeah.
Right?
And
that's more for adventure than it is for life.
And that's kind of what I see about the bushcraft or the survivalist. It's like, okay, it's an emergency situation. I need to survive for a week or two or maybe a little longer, 3 months maybe, by myself for some reason or whatever.
Well, that's why Porter Rockwell's so amazing to me, because like 2 years, at a time, or like Matt Graham, 6 months at a time. Those are more rare than we understand. A lot of people don't last that long.
Yeah.
Especially in rough climates like ours up here in Utah. It is barren. It is high desert.
Yeah, absolutely. And then if you've seen the movie The Revenant,
oh yeah,
which I just saw for the first time the other day.
I still haven't seen it, but I know the story.
Yeah, and because I wanted to see what I could learn from this, this movie, because movies can obviously teach us things and bring our awareness to certain things. And honestly, I did not care for the movie. Maybe it was built up too much for me, but it was definitely very brutal in his survival. He did survive, and it was absolutely brutal and rough, but he barely made it. Anyway, so I just think that option is just not a great option for me. We need to learn those skills and maybe expect the possibility of that to happen, but the likelihood I think is very, very low. So we'll continue on the conversation after this break. Thanks for listening and joining us here on Prepper Talk Radio. Please support our sponsors, and we'll catch you guys after this break.
When the weather's hot outside, cool off with a splash of K-Talk Media, 1640 AM. Oh yeah, now that's refreshing.
My name is Dr. Jonathan Greenberg. Stop what you are doing because what I'm about to say will improve the quality of your life. ZYPPAH.com. That's ZPA. It's Happy Z spelled backwards. ZPA is designed to be comfortable, affordable, and effective at eliminating snoring. I want to help you stop snoring. Go to ZPA.com and order now. ZYPPAH.com. Snoring is a serious matter. Zipa will conquer your snoring problems. Go to zipa.com and order now.
Project Rushmore. In the lore of Harley-Davidson, it's a tribute to the power of 4 young men who built this company. Proof that 112 years of innovation breeds a soul that roars. Because the Harley-Davidson Project Rushmore motorcycles are monumental power. With high-output twin-cam 103 engines and touchscreen infotainment for navigation and communication, power is everywhere you look, hear, and feel. Take a Road Glide Special on a power trip at your Harley-Davidson dealer.
I don't mean to brag, kid, but I'm a pretty healthy guy. Running a growing business means I'm always running. Not many can keep up with me. But you know who can? Grainger. When it comes to getting me the answers I need right when I need them, Grainger moves just as fast as I do. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They're a good running partner, because no matter what problem I have or question, Grainger's got my back. Call clickgrainger.com or stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Your car has some impressive technology. Direct fuel injection, GPS navigation, even seat warmers. And at Rain-X, we think your wiper blades should too. While traditional wiper blades can cause streaking from uneven pressure points, Rain-X's contoured blades hug your windshield, maintaining an even pressure distribution from end to end and providing a clean, smooth wipe. Don't settle for less. Pick up a pair of Rain-X blades today. Find Rain-X premium wiper blades at your nearest trusted retailer. Rain-X. Outsmart the elements.
The essence of sales is transferring enthusiasm to the customer. K-Talk Media is looking for people who have an unabashed enthusiasm for live local radio and who would love to share the message of our station with businesses who would like to tap into our large, loyal audience. Do you want a fun, energetic, and rewarding position with a company that makes a difference? Then join our team and feel the love. Full, part-time, or anytime positions available with great compensation. Call us today, 801-253-4883, 801-253-4883, or go to ktalkmedia.com and shoot us a message.
All right, thanks for sticking with us through the commercial break for our sponsors. We appreciate you supporting them. It's what helps keep us on the air and all of the wonderful shows here at K-Talk. And, of course, wanted to plug us again on Facebook. Please interact with us there, as well as K-Talk Media itself, ktalkmedia.com. I believe that's right. And then also K-Talk Utah on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat.
Slapface.
Yeah,
I just made that one up.
A lot of the different radio show hosts post to the Facebook pages and the Instagram pages, and they do have some excellent shows. A lot of them are political shows, if you like that, and I think that absolutely has a place, and they have some fantastic hosts, and I love listening to a lot of these shows.
We even have cooking shows and liberty shows.
Inside the News in the Morning is a fantastic show if you really want to get in and learn about what's happening around the world.
Behind the scenes.
Exactly. And we really appreciate your support. We really appreciate you supporting K-Talk Media. And if you know of any businesses that you feel could benefit with advertising with K-Talk, please have them contact us on the contact page on ktalkmedia.com.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And if you want to be on the Prepper Talk Radio show specifically, email preppertalkradio@gmail.com, and we'll get you on.
Absolutely.
That's what we do.
Always looking for good guests that have experience and knowledge and would love to share it just like we do. So we're talking about
kind of the pioneer heritage,
looking
skills and tools and things like that, right?
Looking to the past to prepare for the future. We've talked about the difficult journey our pioneers had coming across out to Utah in particular, but it wasn't just Utah. They came all through the West. They came from the Middle East, from the Midwest. There we go. From the Midwest and the East out to the West. For the gold rush, for up into Oregon through the Oregon Trail, out here into Utah as well.
Well, even the Midwest, they came out just for the land, for the opportunity to work their own land.
Exactly. The homesteading.
They're looking for. I think it was back then. It was 140 acres. Right.
And I think it varied depending on the territory, because in some places you could survive on 40 acres, in some places you had to have 1,400 acres to survive, right?
Yeah, once they got into the Rockies, it turned into 1,400 acres. But it was interesting. I mean, like the first homes, really, as they came out this way, were typically usually sod homes. And you think of sod homes, and you're like,
Okay,
like the grass sod, like you cut that. Exactly. It was that. It didn't matter if it was grass, if it was tumbleweed, whatever kind of growth was there. And here's how they did it. Basically, they'd dig 4 inches deep, and they'd dig a flat line across, even with the ground. And then they'd go, depending on the width, but typically about 12 inches wide and then 24 inches or more long.
This is when a sod cutter would really come in handy.
Oh, yeah. Well, and they used like tools kind of like an axe with a handle on each side as kind of the blade to cut underneath the ground, right? But they would have a couple different types of tools. But the Indians taught us how to do this. They were the ones making sod homes long before we did. And so you'd build an internal structure with wood to kind of help support the sod while it's drying, and then also to help support the roof. But you'd start with your first round of sod, and you'd lay it upside down. And then you'd just keep stacking it up that way. And it's always upside down, kind of like bricks. You stagger it just like brickwork.
Like your Legos. You learn how to build it with Legos.
Yeah. And that was your typical first home. And people would live in that for a few years until they could afford.
As they're working on their more permanent structure, right? They're
clearing the land so they can actually grow stuff. And then once they could afford it, they'd start upgrading to maybe log or log and timber type homes, and then they'd upgrade typically to brick.
Now, I don't know how many of you and let me say this, I guess, carefully and delicately, whose wives continue to pressure you to get a bigger, nicer house, like mine.
Well,
there's something wrong with my house.
Wants me to renovate ours.
Well, yeah, but I mean, in general, right? Our house, we're in a pretty. I mean, it's 1,200 square foot Rambler, 2 stories, and yes, it's small for us. Yes, it's tight for us. Yes, it could be updated. But now, picture yourself building a sod house.
A one-room sod house.
Man, I am grateful for my home. I tell you that right now.
You sleep.
Exactly.
A
one-room.
Live in one room with the whole family. So if anyone's snoring, everyone's struggling.
One-room sod house. And then when you build the log home, how much nicer that is. You got a wood floor in there. Man,
no, you didn't.
Well, you
Most
could.
log
Some
homes
of them
didn't have them back then. That's where we get the threshold from.
That's probably where you start. You start with the log, and then you add a wood floor later on.
But it was always usually, I shouldn't say always usually. It was usually a single room log home to start, and then they'd add on to it, or they'd do a 2-room log home. But same thing with your sod. You'd build your fireplace out of stonework, and oftentimes that'd be the only thing that would remain after a fire, or
stone and mud.
Stone and mud. And, you do your brickwork, but with your stones. But that's where you ate, sleep, cook. I mean, part of it was for the efficiency of you only had that one heating source of that fire.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so all year round, that's what you're using to cook and to stay warm.
And it's living, not surviving, right?
It's
living. A way of living, and just think about, okay, that type of lifestyle, call it a lifestyle. I don't know if that's even the right word as a lifestyle.
Well, back then it was.
Yeah, but I don't think you would even use that word lifestyle, right? Because it's hard to think of anything else unless you're, back east and cities have been up for, 100 years, 50 years, whatever.
Yeah, and you go from apartment dwelling to now I'm going to go live on the frontier. You were frontiersmen.
You're frontiersmen.
Right? And you were pioneers.
But that way of life really engendered independence and self-reliance.
Oh, yeah.
Incredibly. I mean, that's what I'm striving for. I know that's what you're striving for, is this self-reliance and independence.
And but let's not get too confused. Okay. The self-reliance and interdependence of smaller communities that rally together, right? So you'd get your frontiersmen coming out here, and they'd set up trading posts, and the cities would end up building up around the trading posts. But that's where people would go to get what they needed. Like, the general store was the everything store, and they'd order out of catalogs, and it'd take 3 to 5 weeks to ship it out there. But that's where they'd get the things that they couldn't make themselves.
They weren't self-sufficient; they were self-reliant,
right,
and independent.
They did everything they could, as much as they could,
exactly,
until they couldn't do it any longer.
And I think that is still quite complete self-reliance. It doesn't mean you're not relying on someone else. That's not complete self-sufficiency, which is But absolutely, you had to be as most self-sufficient as possible. Got the phone ringing here. Let's go ahead and take a call here and see what question or comment you might have for us. Welcome live here to Prepper Talk Radio. You have a question for us? Or comment?
Yeah, we had to smile a little bit when you said the sod home.
Yeah.
I suggest some of their first survival, their living
there we go,
accommodations were literally a dugout hole in the ground.
My great
wagon box on the top of it.
No, that's true.
My great grandma Stallings moved to Idaho and lived in the side of a hill. They dug out a cave and lived in the side of a hill for their first year. Their second year, they built a sod home. But you're exactly right. They started out with digging a hole in the side of a hill or finding a makeshift cave that they could use a wagon
any kind of shelter,
to convert into a roof. But they just had to be flex their ingenuity muscles to come up with something to make it work.
And I'd like to add to that, and you just mentioned it earlier, but at this latitude and at this altitude, protection from the weather, either you protected yourself from it or you perished, one or the other.
That's right.
And even now, like you say, hey, I'm more or less just a cantankerous old timer, but I mean, the pioneers had grit. They either had grit or they didn't make it.
Oh yeah.
Well, there's a different spirit about it, right? People wanted their own life so bad that they were willing to wander off into the woods to get it.
Amen. Yeah, absolutely.
And now we don't want our own life so much as we want somebody else's life, and we're always following so and so on social media. We're so inundated with the medias, whether it be TV, movies, whatever, books, that we're complacent living vicariously through others.
Well, I think our lifestyle is almost totally dependent on a very sophisticated logistics and about any kind of thing, whether it be the damnation of war or whatever else. Hey, our sophisticated infrastructure is not going to be there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you might be faced with people with eat you for supper, all right? And as we look at the way the Russians survived during World War II, under the very extremes of the German occupation.
There's so many different examples we can look to back there. And thanks for your comment. We're running out of time here. We're going to try and wrap this up. We appreciate your call.
Enjoyed your show, and
well, thank you.
Things need to be discussed because potable water is number one, and a solar still is the most simple thing.
That's exactly what I wanted to get into here before we're out of time here. And thanks for your comment. I'll let you go. We talked about shelter because we talk about the survival rules of 3 all the time. And number 1 is shelter. So thus building some kind of structure, whether it's a tent or whether it's a sod home or whatever it might be. So number 2 is water.
Yep.
Even before food. And so how did the pioneers do this? How did our ancestors do that when they first came here to the valley?
I'm going to lump fire in with shelter.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
Because, and this kind of changed last week for me is if you can build yourself a small fire, that will give you some sort of protection like a shelter will, right?
Yeah,
so you put that with your shelter because then once you procure your water, you're going to need to purify it.
And now think about water in particular. We have this amazing delivery system of water right to our homes, right? It's pretty amazing. Water gets pumped out of the ground, it gets sanitized, and it gets delivered right to our homes. And we don't really have to think about it. But now things are changing. People buy bottled water. And it seems to me that it's getting to the point where, what, you drinking out of the tap? That's like toilet water. Why would you drink out of the tap? Everybody's switching to bottled water because it's...
But here's the thing.
If
you look at your bottled water, does it say from a spring or does it say purified?
It comes right out. Well, like, for example, I know for a fact that many of these local brands that we buy, they come right from the culinary water source. They take that and they do run it through a reverse osmosis, and then they add the minerals back to it. But it's a tap water. So,
but here's the thing: most people are buying purified water out of those bottles.
Yes,
there's only a few brands that are actual spring water, and those cost a little more. But you can get the purified water, which is wastewater. And guess what? It's absolutely fine. It's clean to drink. And get used to that because guess what? You're going to have to do the same process in a disaster to get your own water purified and ready to drink.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you look back to our pioneer ancestors. How did they do it? They basically, springs, rivers, streams, and at that point, there wasn't so much of a concern about contamination, about bacteria and viruses and such, because the population was essentially non-existent. And same with agriculture and raising animals and such. There wasn't nearly as big a concern for getting sick drinking unsterilized and unfiltered, unsanitized water. And so we need to consider that in our preparations moving forward. Where are we going to get our water when the city water fails? And if you learn how to locate a spring, if you learn how to dig a well, and know what it takes to get clean water right out of the ground without treating it, without filtering it, because eventually all filters will fail. You'll run out of sanitation chemicals, and you're going to need to have those skills and that knowledge of getting water just like our pioneer ancestors did.
Natural living skills.
So get online. I mean, there's plenty of resources on how our ancestors did that. It's really fascinating.
Check out our buddy Bear Wild. He's got a pretty good channel.
Yep.
Check out T-Jack Survival. He's got an awesome channel.
Yep.
Really primitive skills. And I think we could all benefit from that. I think we could all benefit from going back, not just to 2 generations ago, but 4 or 5 generations ago. Go to the frontiersmen in your family, find out the family stories, find out what they did, how they survived, because you've got that spirit deep inside of you. You've got that same heritage. I don't care where you live in the world. You've got some pioneer heritage somewhere in your family, because otherwise you wouldn't be where you are.
In your blood.
It's in your blood. Like, tap that vein and go after that knowledge, because it will change your life.
So we had mentioned alpacas earlier in our broadcast, and that's what basically the pioneers did. They didn't have alpacas, but they had sheep. They sheared the sheep. They spun the wool into thread. They made that thread into they wove it into fabric, and they made clothes from that fabric.
Yep.
Right from beginning to end, all the way. They went through the entire process themselves. So if that's something you're interested in, I know I definitely am. I'm not going to get there for quite a while, but
go find out where all the old historical sites are that still have looms.
There you go.
So that when the crap hits the fan, you know where to get one.
You know where to get one. That's a great point. I hadn't
Make
thought
sure
of
it's a community effort and you're not stealing it for yourself.
Amen. Well, thanks for listening to us here on Prepper Talk Radio. We sure enjoy doing this show, and we hope you enjoy listening to it as well. Be sure to catch us next week at the same time, same bat channel, and connect with us on social media. We'll see you guys next week.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I feel like I'm on top of the world.
Disclaimer, you will not be transported to the top of the world. In the unlikely event you find yourself at the Arctic Circle, seek shelter from the elements immediately to avoid frostbite and or hypothermia. Geico will not be responsible if you find yourself in a cave or crevasse with a lonely, abominable snowman, who in all likelihood will force you to play games including but not limited to Go Fish, charades, Chinese checkers, or his personal favorite, Red Rover, send Yeti on over. Geico is not liable for any damages, either physical or emotional.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Howdy, folks. Colonel Sanders here. Folks keep asking me how KFC can afford to fit 2 pieces of Kentucky Fried Chicken, taters and gravy, a biscuit, a medium drink, and a cookie into my KFC $5 fill-ups and still sell them for just $5. Well, I saved a little money by only paying for 25 seconds of this here 30-second commercial. KFC, it's finger-licking good. At participating KFCs for a limited time. Prices may vary. Tax extra. Extra charge for breast piece and side item substitution may apply.
There are certain things in life that are just going to happen.